Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, a place where industry experts discuss how technology is impacting our life, our work, while also transforming entire industries and even the world. Every day, I'm going to be serving you a daily dose of optimism and motivation while highlighting along the way that technology really does work best when it brings people together. I feel incredibly blessed at the moment because every day I sit in my little room here and record a podcast that I can beam into your ears wherever you're listening in the world. And I'm just speaking with so many amazing, inspirational people. And today I'm incredibly excited to get Stevie Hopkins on here. He is the CEO and founder of a merch company called SCP. And not only has he worked with everyone from Billie Eilish, Freddie Gibbs, Louis the Child, he's now building an NFT-powered fan-guided community that will resemble a city and its cultural complexity. And that's called Dropolis. Today's episode is all about Stevie's story, and let me tell you, it is a great one, and he is officially added to the incredibly cool guys I want to share a beer with. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears just outside the Chicago area, where you can join me and Stevie Hopkins in conversation today. So, a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. My name's Stevie Hopkins. I'm the CEO of two companies, SCP Merchandising and also Dropolis, a new Web3 platform that my friends and I are building. For the past 10 to 15 years, I've been working in two spaces, the merchandising world, as well as the entertainment industry, mostly music industry, but pretty much the entire creator economy. I like to consider myself a disruptive CEO. I've never had a job before. Only jobs I've ever had are ones that I've created, and I'm learning on the fly, but my merchandising company, SCP, is the largest vertically integrated independent merch company in the world for the entertainment space. So I'm the only owner. We don't do any outsourcing, have all of our own internal fulfillment, production, everything. That's very, very, very rare. Most of our competitors are, I like to say, they're paper pushers in Los Angeles and New York. But yeah, we work with the creator economy, musicians, record labels, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, TikTok kids, Twitter celebrities, right? So anyone that has a fan base, we are an A to Z solutions provider. Prior to doing that, I owned my own lifestyle brand for the disability space. I have a very severe disability, spinal muscular atrophy, born with it. It's the only thing I know. In 2007, my sister and I started a merch brand called 3E Love. She passed away in 2009. I decided to quit my job in music in the financial industry, and I traveled the world for 4 years spreading her message, and that's how I got into merchandising. So it's a much longer story, but I don't know how much time you have.
No, it's brilliant. It's such a powerful story, and it's so important to share it as well, because I always say on here that all too often we judge people by their current success and say, look at that CEO at the top of the mountain, look how great they've done. But they don't see that long climb, that summit, and the story behind the journey. So if I was
to... it's a grind.
Yeah, it really is. So if I was to take you back for a moment then, can you remember where it all began, where your passion for tech came from, or maybe the moment that put you on this path that you're on today? Or I should say, what's your origin story, right?
Yeah. I like to say that the internet saved my life. If I ever write a book, that'll be the title. I've just been an internet kid since I was like 6 years old, 7 years old, right? So I remember moving into my brand new house when my parents moved. I was like seven years old, and they got me a Macintosh because Macs were all the rage in the late 80s, early 90s, right? And they got me a Mac. They put it in the corner of my room. We got an AOL subscription, and I remember just going onto the internet and feeling like anything was possible. Like having a disability, not being able to walk, not being able to play sports, not being able to run around the neighborhood with your friends. The internet was like my outlet for a lot, information, for friendships. And it started very, very young. So I was a very, very young internet kid on there night and day whenever I could, learning all the software, learning all the tools, taught myself how to do HTML and Java and Flash and CSS. And I started building websites, fan pages for my favorite rock band or my favorite EDM DJ. I had a lot of musical phases. I made a fan page for The Prodigy, and you're from the United Kingdom, so very familiar with them. And so I remember making a fan page for The Prodigy or the band Garbage, and I made a website for my dad's insurance agency. So I was just all about making websites and, downloading IRC and playing video games. And I got into EverQuest and World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike. And just whether it was gaming or entrepreneurship or business or friendship, the internet was like my safe place, it gave me access to engage with the world, and it still does. And I've just been obsessed with anything cloud internet ever since I was a little kid. And that's really my origin story. I've been starting businesses on the internet since I was like 15 years old. Web design services. I almost got expelled from university because I started a online bookstore for people to sell their books to each other, and we didn't have a permit to advertise on campus, so they weren't happy when we chalked all the sidewalks and we flyered every academic building and housing unit. So I've been starting businesses since I was a very little kid.
And that's what's wrong with university life right there. I mean, it's a great entrepreneurial spirit there, and it's like, no, get back in your box and think like everybody else. So kudos to you. My only question to you is, how have you been so productive when you committed so much time to World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike? Because they suck the time out, don't they?
Hey, that's part of the origin story. I started clans. I was starting message boards, whatever I've ever been passionate about, I've put my all into it, so it was fun.
What it's all about. 100%. And of course, it was that path, that origin story that led you to becoming the CEO and founder of a merch company called SCP. You said you work with a lot of influencers, but you also work with some pretty big names from Billie Eilish, Freddie Gibbs, Louis the Child, etc. So can you tell me more about the story behind SCP too? I mean, you told me a little about it, but I bet there's a bit more there too.
Oh, there's a lot there. It's all an accident, man. I always say the best things in life are accidents. After my sister passed away, I traveled all over doing speaking engagements, selling merchandise for our lifestyle brand, 3E Love. After about 4 or 5 years of it, I got really, really tired of living on the road, living out of a van. It became very, very stressful, anxious to kind of have my entire financial independence and freedom sort of tied to my sister's legacy, like she invented this message, this symbol. And so I'm like, I got a print shop. I got a graphic designer. Like, what else can I do with it? And prior to her passing, after college, back in 06 to 09, my friend and I, we did like concerts and wedding halls and bars, and I was the MySpace promoter and he was the buyer, and we were just, it was crazy. That's a whole nother story. But I got very involved in like DIY music business from 06 to 09 before my sister passed away. I made a lot of friends. Made a friend with a graphic designer. I'll never forget in 2013, October, I got a call from an old friend. He needed 25 t-shirts printed for one of his customers. He had a screen printing shop in his garage. He hurt his back. He couldn't fill an order. And he's like, can you help me out? I'm like, sure. So I take the order. This band shows up at my house at midnight on a Thursday. They've got a weekend tour. They picked up their 50 t-shirts, 2 designs, 25 shirts each. They never stopped coming back.
Wow.
We ended up becoming friendly. They signed to a major independent label. They went on Warped Tour, which is a big, tour in America for the emo, pop punk, world, from the Vans Warped Tour. And they exploded. And within a year, they were 10% of my revenue. And I was a disability lifestyle brand, right? I'm not a music merchandising company, but I understood internet, e-commerce, customer service, website building, design. I used to work in the music industry. I'm a huge fan of music, right? So it kind of pulled everything together, and then they just kept blowing up. And I'll never forget January 6th, 2015. I love telling this story. Their new manager sent me 6 emails back to back to back to back to back to back, all with the same subject, intro. And the email was copy and pasted, but it was the 6 of his friends that are all managers. And those managers all wanted a new merch company. And I had this moment that I just saw life flash before my eyes. I'm like, oh boy, am I gonna do this? I told myself I'd never work in the music industry again. And now I've got 6 intros, and I know that this is gonna take over my life. But I said yes, and one of those managers ended up discovering Billie Eilish about 1.5 years, 2 years later. I'll never forget when he emailed me. I was in the middle of a really stressful situation for a band's album release, and he emailed me. He's like, hey, I need 25 shirts for my new artist, Billie Eilish. She has a showcase in LA, Highland Park, actually, and then another one in London. Can you get me these designs? It's a rush order. And I was like, what is this? I looked at the design. I still tease him about it. I looked at the design. It looked like a 5K, a nonprofit shirt, because it had the city name on it, and it was so basic. And I forwarded it to my account manager, Emily, my only account manager at the time. I'm like, can you handle this? I don't have time. I'm really stressed. I love Danny. Help him out. But a day later, she's like, Stevie, do you know who this is? I'm like, no. She's like, it's Apple's #1 to watch. She's exploding. Her song was on that 13 Reasons Why. She's on the cover of all these blogs and all these internet, magazines. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I was so busy. And then it just exploded from there. And it was an amazing experience. I had to send a creative director to her bedroom for 6 hours to look through her journals and her closet to figure out what her design aesthetic was so we could build her merch. It was a crazy 2 years. She eventually, unfortunately, but everything happens for a reason, had to move her merch rights to her record label. It was a part of her contract. There was a ticking clock, it was always going to end, but her family and her management was incredible to me. Took really good care of me for a very long time, almost 2 years. I built my business around it. Then they referred me to other people when they left, and the rest is history. It's a flash. It's been crazy.
Yeah, what an amazing story. I absolutely love that. And what I love about you as well is you're not the kind of person just to remain in one place and not progress, always working and looking for new angles and new ways to improve. So from there, of course, you're now building an NFT-powered fan-guided community, which is quite interesting because you're almost like you've come full circle and gone back to those MySpace days, but for the new world, for the Web3 world, and you're actually resembling a city in its cultural complexity and offerings, and it's called Dropolis. So can you tell me more about the story behind that and the problems that you're solving as we all prepare for Web3, because it feels like you're one step ahead of most people?
Yeah, I started dabbling in blockchain and crypto just as a trader, investor back in 2017 or so, and I've always just liked tech. So when I see trends within tech or within culture, I I need to learn about it. So I started getting into it back in 17, and like most people, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. It was a crazy year during the ICO phase, and then the crash, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was hard, and I just didn't really pay attention. I was really busy with Billie Eilish, really busy with all my YouTubers. I didn't really stay in touch with the blockchain world. And then I'll never forget another story I like to tell people. Early 2021, I had a wild YouTube campaign for merch that did almost 1 million orders in a week. And I had to hire 50 temporary employees and rent a new warehouse. And I was working 7 days a week. And one of the temporary employees comes into my office on a Sunday at like 10 a.m. He's like, "Hey, have you bought anything on Nifty Gateway?" I'm like, what's Nifty Gateway? He's like, NFTs. I'm like, no, like I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk about them, but I thought it was like a stock ticker. Like I didn't know what it was, right? He's like, "No, you gotta check it out. Like you'll be really into it." And he told me about his friend Thank You X, who is a really well-known digital artist that dropped a release. I'm like, "Oh, I know Thank You X. Like I printed his designs for Louis the Child, and like I know who you're talking about." So that caught my interest. So I went on to niftygateway.com. There was a drop happening in 5 minutes. I loaded up my credit card. I bought my first drop. It ended up being Micah Johnson's Aku's World. And I just fell in love with this concept of like digital collectibles that tell stories, because it reminds me a lot of what I'd done for my disability brand, or Billie Eilish, or bands with their album releases, or YouTubers, right? Like it just was like a digital version of what I was already doing, but without the physical. And for me, that went into instant entrepreneurial paranoia mode. I was like, "Oh no, like blockchain's gonna put me out of business." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh no," like I instantly envisioned a world where people would buy and sell and trade NFTs, much like they do with vinyl records or toys or sneakers or streetwear, all the worlds that I dabble in at SCP. But I was like, wait, I could sell NFTs that are attached to physical collectibles. And then people could trade the NFTs prior to redeeming them for my physical merch. And I've got 300,000 square feet of a warehouse. I've got 200 employees. Why wouldn't I tokenize everything that I ship?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why wouldn't I? And it really evolved into this idea of a highly curated, authentic, like marketplace. So almost like a curated home of culture, but with a marketplace of tokens that are tied to merch. So whether it's a record or a toy or a sneaker or a painting or a streetwear collection, I really liked this idea. So we've been building for 1.5 years, been bootstrapping it. We have 4 full-time employees pre-revenue. We're going into our seed round. We've been working with amazing design firms and strategy firms, and I've just been all in, but I'm trying to do it the way that I want to do it. I don't want it to be a cash grab. I want it to be utility based. I want it to be authentic engagement between creators and fans. I want to just do stuff that no one's ever done before and add like tokenized engagement. And so we came up with the idea of Dropolis because I love world building. I love storytelling, as you can probably tell now. And we just came up with the name Dropolis with our branding partner. This idea of the city where everything drops, drop everything, drop everywhere, and a safe place for people who like, metal or emo or country or YouTube or video gaming or punk rock or whether you're, white or black or Asian or gay or straight, like, doesn't matter. Like, there'll be something for you. So I'm hoping to build like this world where everyone's welcome and the connection is what you're into, like what makes you tick.
That's beautiful, man. And one of the things I love about what you said there as well, you said it's exactly the same as what I've always done, but in digital, not physical. And I think this space is so complex for a lot of people, but that pretty much sums it up there. But I suspect you get this question a lot, so apologies for asking it and being the 899th person to ask. But so we can increase understanding and increase adoption in this space, what do you say to those people listening to us now that will say, I still don't get NFTs, or what value they offer to me or my business? What would you say to those?
Yeah, I start by explaining to them sort of the concept behind cryptocurrency, blockchain, and like Web3. I think it's important that they have a better understanding from like a foundational tech perspective. I try to make it as simply as possible that all an NFT is a digital contract that is encrypted, that is a token that you own. So it's like a digital contract that you own that stores information. And then from there, I tell them the internet is made up of data, right? And right now, Google and Amazon and Meta and Microsoft and all the big billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies, they own the internet. They own the data. And I tell them, cryptocurrency, blockchain, NFTs, once that is running the internet, which I believe it will, we will own the internet. Don't you want to own the internet? Right? Like, the internet's not going away. So once I explain that to them, it kind of opens up their eyes. And then I explain to them how Web3, instead of username and password, which is Web 1, where you're a guest on somebody else's computer, right? Instead of Web 2, connect your Google, connect your Facebook, connect your Twitter, where you're using somebody else's version of you, your social media profile, your email. You don't own it, they own it, right?
Yeah.
Like, connect with that to get into another computer, to engage with the internet. Web3 is connect your wallet. You own your wallet. You control what is in your wallet. So I tell businesses and creators, this is an opportunity to let your customers and to let your fans, right? And to let the people that you engage with to own their fandom, to own their engagement with you. And it's a sense of empowerment and independence that we all want. And when you do that, now all of a sudden it's more authentic, it's more exciting. Once you get tokens into people's wallets and they choose to have, let's say Billie Eilish eventually does an NFT. I don't believe it will be anytime soon, but when she does, all of a sudden 1 million Billie fans will have a token in their wallet for whatever reason. Maybe it was free, maybe it was purchased, maybe it came with a merch item or an album. But now all of a sudden, you can then engage with those people and say, hey, do you own one of my tokens? Come to my concert and get a free t-shirt or early access to VIP. So it's like a tokenized fan club, a tokenized customer base, a tokenized marketing list. And the opportunities are endless, dated content on the internet, dated events like, restaurants where you have a room where only token holders can go into the room, and that room has a private menu. Could you imagine if In-N-Out's, you're not from America, but In-N-Out, I'm sure you've eaten there, right? So
yeah.
They've got their secret menu. What if they had another secret menu for only token holders? It's that act of exclusivity and engagement. Like, we all want to feel like we're a part of something. Like, when I was a little kid, I remember getting a Michael Jordan jersey, the limited edition one when they won the NBA championship. And I felt so cool to wear that jersey, right? Like, I was one of I don't know how many thousand people, but I had it and it was very expensive. I have no proof to show Neil Hughes that I own that jersey, right? But like, that's a part of my story. And what if I had a token? Like, I looked at tokens and NFTs as almost as like a proof of life. It's like our time capsule. Like 50 years from now, my grandchildren will inherit my digital wallet and it'll tell them the story of my life. Like I love it. It's crazy, but I love it.
Brilliant. And for anyone listening that's hearing about Dropolis for the very first time, can you just walk me through how it works? Maybe provide an example of how it benefits fans, communities, and the artists, because it benefits everyone, doesn't it? It's everyone involved in that.
Yeah, for sure. So, from an artist creator's perspective, a rights holder, whether it's a record label or an estate or an artist, whoever owns the right to the content, the name, the art, right? This is an opportunity for the first time in history to track on the internet who owns what and who engages with your content directly without having to depend on a third party, because everything that happens on the blockchain, I can read it, you can read it. Now, you might need to learn how to read it or use a tool to read it, but it's all public. So it's the first time where you can see who is interacting with your content and interacting with your IP and trading it and selling it, who owns it. That's very, 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 very powerful. But on top of that, I envision, whether it's music NFTs or it's records, mostly with Dropolis, the power behind Dropolis is that every token is connected to something physical, okay? And I can tell you stories of albums that we've released where there's only 1,000 units, they sold for $40, and they were flipping on eBay and Discogs within an hour for $400, right? There's always going to be financial arbitrage around collectibles, okay? That's never going to change. So for the first time in history, with Dropolis, rights holders can benefit from the financial arbitrage and the profit of flipping their merchandise, their records, their sneakers, their rights. Because if fan A buys it for 40, sells it for 400, it's a $360 profit range. When that happens right now on eBay and Discogs and StockX and Dote and Depop, right? When that happens today, the artist, the creator, the rights holder, they don't get anything.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you're shipping stuff back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's extra cardboard, extra environmental damage, extra inefficiencies. There's lost shipments. So I'm arguing that it's better for the collectors, the fans, the flippers, and the rights holders and the artists and the creators, because it's just more efficient. Just sell the token back and forth. And then eventually, if somebody wants the hoodie, they'll redeem the token and I'll ship them the hoodie, right? And so that's sort of the baseline economic value prop of the tech that I'm building, right? Now, at a higher level, Dropolis is community building. It's engaging. It's marketing engagement. It's utilizing the technology of tokenization in order to allow artists and fans to interact. Private discords, private content, private videos, live streams. Like, it's just, it kills a bunch of birds with one stone, And there's a lot of self-service tools out there for my potential partners, like self-service tools that you plug into your web store, you plug into your fan club, right? But I really like the idea of what I'm building. Obviously, I'm biased, but I like this thought of providing a full-service strategy team for our partners, because they don't understand Web3, and you really need a partner who can really walk the walk, talk the talk, and also understand merchandising, creative, music management rights, artist rights, record label rights, all the logistics of merch and records, and it's a lot. So I'm excited.
And I would say that there feels almost seems that there's a lot of synergies between Dropolis and SCP merchandising.
Oh yeah.
But how would you say they complement each other best?
Well, there has to be synergy because without SCP, there's no Dropolis. I mean,
Yeah.
there could be, but the reason why I'm so openly talking about this on podcasts and in interviews, a lawyer said, Stevie, what's your patent? And I said, I don't need a patent. I'm the only person that I know of with 300,000 square feet and 200 employees and Rolodex of creators and their managers, and who understands Web3. And I can just get to market. I can store the merchandise. I've got 8 creative directors that are some of the best in the world, already designing for some of the biggest names in the world, album covers and so it's like, that's the synergy. So, right now it's really cool. I didn't even have to worry about getting, a new HR person because my Dropolis employees are employed by SCP's holding company, and then we can just, pay an operating fee. So it's easy, it's just the synergy. It's able to move quickly, nimble. I've always been about vertical integration. Every business I've ever done, I'm not a huge fan of outsourcing. So even the tech people we're hiring internally, so I'm very, very excited just to continue leveraging what I've already done to build Dropolis. And I kind of say it's my swan song. Like, I don't think I have another business in me. Like it's the thing that puts all my loves together.
And that passion really comes across. I mean, if we look back through your whole career and we go towards the beginning, and you're building the Prodigy and the garbage fan sites on MySpace to what you're doing now. But we are living in a world of continuous change, and it can feel exhausting sometimes. I've got to ask, how do you keep your curiosity, your passion, and your open-mindedness for new things alive? Is there anything that you do, or is it just because you love what you do?
Just love what I do. I'm just like obsessed with discovering new music, new tech, new people. I have this like sort of motto, say yes to anything unless I think it might kill me. Like I love trying new things, new food. I love making new friends. It's just, I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with my disability, to be honest. Like when you feel limited, like physically, or, you're told you can't do something your entire life and there are things you can't do, right? Like learning to accept that. And then once you find things that you can do and that you enjoy doing and that you're good at, you want to do even harder, So I don't know. I think it's really tied to my genetic makeup and just overcoming challenges from my disability. I think it's very, very tied to it, I think also keeps you young, like life doesn't get any easier as you get older, whether you're disabled or not, So I think it's exciting. My caregiver this morning was showing me a new TikTok musician, and I'm like, this is weird. I've never heard anything like this before. And, now I want to deep dive, and I almost missed our podcast because I was watching every TikTok video. So I just love trends, love learning new things. So.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely love it. And if I was to ask you to look in your virtual crystal ball, what's your grand vision for the future? And what is it that excites you most about Web3?
Whether I like it or not, and I'm not saying it's my vision because I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I truly believe that our entire lives, they're already on the internet. We may as well have more control of what's on the internet, right? And so I just love this concept of like owning your wallet and being in control of what you do in the internet via your digital wallet. And I also have this vision, and I'm very real when I say this. I think when you go to a pub in the UK, wherever you live, Neil, you go to a pub, you drink a beer, you listen to a song, you're with your family, you're out to dinner, and on the way out, they're going to say, would you like an NFT to commemorate your experience?
Ooh.
And you're going to say, like, yes or no, right? And potentially, you're all going to have a digital wallet on our body, in our glasses, in our phone, in our watch, in our hoodie, right? Maybe implanted in our skin. I truly believe this. That will be open source. And everywhere we go, people are just be dropping tokens. So I actually believe that 20, 30, 40 years from now, you could literally watch the story of your life and say, oh, it was a Friday night, it was 5 p.m., got off work, went to get my hair cut, had a date Friday night, went out to dinner at Applebee's, woke up Saturday morning, was tired, went to Dunkin' Donuts, got a coffee, went to the football game with my friends, then went to a wedding. I truly believe that our wallets are going to tell the story of our lives. And, I think for a very long time, it will stay decentralized and we'll have some control over it. I am a little worried that it will just become fully centralized and, other people will somehow own the data. But I'm optimistic that the spirit behind Web3 and owning what's in your wallet and having a choice and being able to delete it won't be used for evil. But that's my vision. And I can't stop that from happening. Like, no one's going to stop it. I truly believe that's what's going to happen.
Can we have unlock achievements as well in our lives? How cool
No,
would
it'll
that
happen. It'll happen. It'll legitimately happen. Like, there'll be, when we're on a podcast right now, there should be a token to commemorate when Neil Hughes and Stevie Hopkins met. I mean, that will be tokenized one day via Zoom.
Now, as someone that's met some of the biggest names out there, and on this podcast, we've had people from business, VC funding and tech have either been guests or listened to the podcast. I'm curious, is there a person out there that you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why? Because he or she might just hear this and we can send it out in the ether, and who knows, maybe I can connect you to that person. But who would it be and why?
Definitely Gary Vaynerchuk. I have a love-hate relationship with him, I like to say. Whenever I'm down, feeling sad, feeling depressed, feeling like I can't do something, all I got to do is listen to him for maybe 3 days in a row. And like, his energy and his passion for like learning new things, like it gets me right back into the groove. And I always say that, when I get annoyed with him is when I know I'm happy again. And like, it's like, because I see myself in him, like, and you don't want to watch yourself on a video, right? And like, I always joke that he's my able-bodied spirit animal. And, I've actually met him over Zoom, and I had some really ridiculous experiences with him. It wasn't a one-on-one, it was like a group outing, on Zoom. It was like a little webinar, and I've already had some ridiculous experiences with him, but I would just love to hang out and, tell stories of the grind days and, tell stories about the most ridiculous things that have happened to us and the businesses that have failed, because I've started like 30 businesses, I feel like, at this point. So I don't know, that would be fun. It would have nothing to do with business or leverage or getting money from him. Just storytelling. I think we'd have a lot of fun doing it.
Amen to that. Love that. And before I let you go, for anyone listening wanting to dig a little bit deeper on everything we've talked about today, and we have covered a lot from Dropolis and SCP merchandising, but what would be the best starting point for everything and the best way to contact your team if anyone's got any questions?
The easiest place I can tell people is go to my Twitter, because in the URL is my link tree. So if you go to my Twitter, which is Stevie Speaks, STEVIE SPEAKS, or you can just search my ENS Ethereum name, Stevie.eth. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I love listening to your story today, from your professional career in merchandising and fan engagement, and seeing that mass amount of potential that Web3 has on the horizon. And it's incredibly cool what you're doing. I'm going to be staying in touch with you for sure and see where this leads. But more than anything, just a big thank you for sharing your story with me today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun getting to know you and hanging out.
Wow, Stevie's passion and enthusiasm for what he does just really shine today in the podcast. And he's doing something that he absolutely loves, and he's just batting it out the park time and time again. So, Stevie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I would love to stay in touch with you. I am going to grab a beer with you in Chicago, or a shake at Shake Shack, whatever it might be. But I got a feeling the universe has got a few things in store for us. And if you've been inspired by Stevie's story today, or you want to share your story, whatever it is, please, I want to hear from you. Email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can also get me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, all those usual places. I'm nice and easy to find at Neil C. Hughes. But don't just hit follow or connect. The reason I sit here and record this every day is getting to know people. And I've loved getting to know Stevie today, and I'd love to connect with you too. So send a little message, tell me you listen to the show, and we'll keep this conversation going. But that's it for today. So a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.